actual sense, the actual vision of that person is merely thought. It's all thought. And even if you touch something, even if you smell something, you say, I'm smelling a rose. That's not a thought. That sensation, when you're smelling a rose, it gets translated to electrical pulses and goes to the brain as electrical pulses. Those electrical pulses form a neural network that associates this smell with something and says, well, it's a pleasant smell or it's an unpleasant smell, for instance. The actual smell that you smell is an unconscious thought. It's a good smell or a bad smell is a subconscious thought. When you become conscious of the thought, the consciousness, comes into being. Even for an instance. From there, changes emerges. Just the thought may change, and the situation that is still thoughts may change according to the divine order that is needed in that certain circumstance.
I bet everyone has had the experience where you've been dreaming and you're having a nightmare, and then you tell yourself, wait a minute, this is a nightmare, I think I'll wake up because it's a bad nightmare. Has anybody ever had that situation? Yeah. And you can actually wake yourself and come to the consciousness level to say, this is a dream, and therefore I'm going to stop it. So can you do that in a awakeness, on a wake level? Well, I guess what you're saying is yes, that is what we are doing. As we are going about our lives by way of thoughts, if we stop and say this is just a thought, then we're detaching, we're becoming conscious. We also need to do that in terms of the good thoughts, and I bet you we don't do that very often, because when things are happening in a good way, we don't stop and say, wait a minute, this is just a thought. So therefore I better not have so much fun here. I mean, we shouldn't tell ourselves anything to react one way or the other. Once we realize it's a thought, we just are aware of that, and that's it.
Right, and then another thought comes, like you said, the thought that this is a thought, between them there is an awareness. So the consciousness, came into being, into full being for that split of a second, and then got entangled in another thought again, that was just a thought.
So it's like holding space.
Yeah. Yeah, but this is a perfect example though, the dream.
Yeah.
This is a beautiful example. Is when you're dreaming, in the dream, your brain gets entangled in the dream. Gets attached to the events in the dream. Your body will sweat. You might wake up, your heart is beating a lot faster. Your chemistry, your brain, your chemistry gets entangled in a dream. It's not even real, it's a dream, but you get entangled in that dream as if it's real. And the same thing with thoughts. Thoughts aren't real to the consciousness. Just like a dream is not real to the brain, thoughts are not real to the consciousness. Because form is an illusion to the consciousness. And thoughts are form. They are literally form.
But when you're in a dream, isn't it real to the brain?
Because the brain gets entangled with it. But when the brain is awakened, when you wake up, when the brain wakes up, then it recognizes that this is just a dream. And exactly the same thing with thoughts. You get entangled with thoughts. And like I said, thoughts, you could be sitting on a very comfortable couch, eating a nice scoop of ice cream, and satisfying all your senses. And a thought comes of someone that's threatening you, or a situation that's threatening your stability. All of a sudden you're sweating, you're angry, you're worried, you plunge into fear, you throw the ice cream away, you want fresh air, you want to call a friend, you want to go see a psychologist. And that person is miles away, and it's only a thought. This is just what happens in the dream. So when you recognize, just recognize that it was a dream. So you wake up, your heart is beating from a dream, from a bad dream, let's say.
Good dream.
And you're sweating. And the minute you recognize it's a dream, everything calms calms down, all this goes away. Just by recognizing that it was a dream. The same thing applies to thought. Try it.
It's so much easier.
Try it. You get stuck, you get entangled in thought. And you worry, and you get angry, and this and that, and all of that stuff. And until you become aware that this is just a thought, just like a dream. The word of thought is the consciousness's dream, is God's dream. This word of thought, which is everything, because everything is thought to us humans, or to any form of life. This word of thought, or the word of form, is God's dream. God is you, and when you, God, awakens to that dream, you know it's not real. You don't take it seriously, you laugh at it, you smile at the most difficult situation, the most threatening event, you smile at it.
But our thoughts are thoughts from God.
It is consciousness getting entangled with its own self in the form of how it experiences itself. You know, once I put it experiences, it's all consciousness experiences itself. So the consciousness gets entangled with its own patterns. There's consciousness and there's patterns of consciousness. So consciousness is the ultimate observer in you, which is you are. Patterns of consciousness, or the way consciousness experiences itself through patterns of experiences, is the word of form. That's all there is. There's patterns of consciousness and there's consciousness. But it is all consciousness. Patterns of consciousness is consciousness as well.
The patterns of the dream.
The patterns of the dream. Just like our thoughts are patterns.
So
Our thoughts are all patterns.
when you say try it, how would you describe that?
Right, that's a thought. Now, this is what we're going to come back to when we start at the beginning. When we suggest try something or do something, okay? So you're saying, wait a second, it happens on its own. What do you mean, try it? Your brain is going to try. Doesn't matter what we say. Your brain is made to pursue. Your brain is made to analyze and expect, to aim. Right? So, to just give your brain a hint of an example of what is it to be detached or disentangled from thought, we're going to say, go home and do this, or even now, do this and that. That is not changing your state of mind. But the reason why you're able to perceive such information, why your brain is able to perceive such information, accept, not reject such information, and have the drive to pursue such state, is because your state of mind is already in a position to allow you to accept this information, to allow you to understand it, and to allow the brain to pursue it. So this information that you're hearing now, or when you try, you can go, oh, okay, so I learned this, and now I'm applying it, and I see results. Therefore, what I learned told me what to do, and what I'm doing is causing an effect, which is a change in my experiences. So you fall back into the realm of cause and effect, which is a conventional realm. But it's not like that. It's the fact that your brain is able to perceive such information, and your brain is able to understand such information, and then apply it, is all a projection of your state of mind that's already been transformed from the inside out, meaning God have already changed your state of mind. Because why are those brains here able to do something like that, and some other brains, like really fanatic religious people, or people that find all this bunch of baloney, why do they reject such information instantly? As soon as they hear it, they go, I don't want to hear about this. It's baloney nonsense. I'm living in a sensing world. You sense it, it exists. You don't sense it, it doesn't exist. Too sensing. So they reject such information. They don't want to, let alone understanding it. They don't find the information like this appealing. It's because your state of mind is changed. So now if we suggest something for you to go and, like Richard always says, the how. The how is great indication. The how is an indicator. It's a road sign of your state of mind. The how is not something that's changing anything. The how is it's important, but it's an indicator. So detachment. So if I'm going to suggest something to you now, you're not going to do it because I suggested it. Because some other person would have heard the same thing and flatly rejected it. It's because what I'm saying, what you're thinking, what you're understanding, what you're applying, and what you're experiencing is simply a movie on the screen. It's a projection of your state of mind, your lens. The lens, how clear your lens is, your mind. So if you want to start with detachment, you will detach first and foremost from your own transformation. Meaning, detach from wanting to detach.
Okay, we're done.
No more Muji.
That's the trick.
That's the thing. Right.
Oh.
The most important experience of my life has been the detachment from my own transformation. When I'm detached from everything else, I was still attached to my own transformation. I want to transform more, to detach more. And it's when I realized that that pursuit of detachment, of attachment to my transformation was just a thought. And thoughts do not disentangle you, do not detach you. So everything that you're thinking now doesn't do anything to you. It's just a projection. It's really just a projection. So all those thoughts that you're having now, as you're looking at me, are not changing your state, are not detaching you from it. The reason why you're able to think like that is because your state of detachment, your state of being, is, or your lens, your state of mind, the lens is clearer now, and consciousness is flowing more. And with consciousness, the more that white light flows without being broken up into a prism, through a clear lens rather than a diamond cut lens, the more that light flows through your clearer state of mind, the more comes with it the attributes of this light, of this consciousness. Light, I'm talking metaphorically light, it's not light, consciousness. But we're talking about the metaphor of the lens. And the attribute of the consciousness is detachment, effortlessness, order, peace, unconditional love.
But it's not good or bad, though. It's not good or bad.
It's not good or bad, but this is just the nature of the consciousness.
But it sounds good.
Don't go there.
I'm sorry.
All right, let's start.
That's another thing, the good dreams I don't want to wake up from, and I end up waking up from good dreams. And I
That's
say,
right.
"Man, that was a good dream."
That's right.
But doesn't it get easier to detach too as,
It gets easier on its own, of course, because the brain gets rewired. That's what, so that when your brain experiences, we think that the brain is detaching. But when the brain experiences a detachment, like you go home and you experience yourself being less attached to material than a year ago. And then you say, you know what, I just don't have the drive to be attached to those objects anymore. So when the brain experiences a sense of detachment, first and foremost, it takes possession of that. I detached. I accomplished detachment. I am the hero in here. And I can do more. I learned, and I can do more. So that's the first thing that the brain does. So the ego rises. The sense of the I comes about. And then, at the same time, hello.
Oh, hi. I'm looking to see if there's someone here who might have a key to the room over there.
Unfortunately not.
No.
No, sorry. Good luck. And the second thing the brain does is it tries to make sense out of that experience. Why am I detached? After it claims possession to that experience, it says, why am I detached now, but I wasn't able to detach last year? Oh, because I learned. Because it wants to take credit. And there is an I, and the I learned. So, but it's all happening from the inside. But with all this, every time you experience, the reason why it becomes easier, because every time your brain experiences something, the neural network, the hardlining changes as well, right? Because what really connects the neural network are experiences through our 5 senses. That's all what it is. So the neural network changes, and it changes more, and it changes more, and it changes more. Then your brain is able to detach from that person more, or from that situation more. But it starts with the consciousness detaching from thought. That's all where it starts. So every time you're detached, you see yourself detaching from something, it's because you became aware of it, that it is a thought or it is something, but you can't rationalize it, so you don't recognize that thought, that it is just a thought. And the awareness happens so quickly. So you wouldn't recognize it. But in time, it becomes clearer. The lens becomes clearer. You start saying that, you know what? This is just a thought. And you're able to focus that this is just a thought. You focus on it. This is just a thought. And thoughts don't change anything.
But couldn't, getting back to thoughts, I'm a thinker. Sorry about that.
Your brain is a thinker. You are entangled with your brain.
Well, okay, all is consciousness, so even thoughts are of God, right? So
Patterns of God.
patterns of God. So being aware of our thoughts, some thoughts are just ego-based, and then some are like conscious-based, is what you're saying?
All thoughts are ego-based.
Okay, but
Even the thought, the most loving
okay.
contribution you want to make to humanity, at even the most collective level, ego is misperceived. Ego, we think usually of ego as being
Proud.
self-centered,
Yes.
self-interest. Yeah, listen. Ego is, there's another one-letter word for ego. It's the I, the letter I. That's ego. And it's,
So
and
everything,
it's
all thoughts,
elusive.
it comes from ourselves.
It comes from the brain, not yourself. From the brain.
Okay.
Your brain thinks. So here it comes. So there was one cell that used to think on its own.
Okay.
And that cell needed to survive better, so it gathered with another cell and told, hey, let's make a group here. It's just a group, we can protect each other. When I'm sleeping, you protect my back. When you're sleeping, I protect your back. So those two cells gathered together. So now we have a multi-cell organism. And then over time, we got this brain that has billions of cells, 100 billion cells. They're all protecting each other. It's all mutual benefit. Coexisting in mutual benefit. Collectively, those tiny little organisms that we call brain, that we think it's us, collectively, they come up with a notion that collectively we are the I. We together, all of us, tiny little cells. It's like, you look, there's in the ocean, those tiny little fish that travel in, thousands of groups to make one body to scare, to intimidate predators, right? So they protect each other for their individual survivorship, ultimately. That's exactly the brain. Each cell wants to survive, but each cell mutually depends on the collective for that cell to survive. And then there's a collective survivorship. But ultimately it's individual. That's where self-centeredship comes. So each cell in your brain is self-centered. Collectively, this self-centeredship, collectively we call it the I or the ego. So it doesn't matter if you want to love or if you want to give or you want to take. It's still the ego, which is the elusive I that those 100 billion cells put together. That's the ego. So any thought is produced by those cells. And it is only produced by those cells, so those cells can survive. Even if it was for the collective common good, those cells want to survive. They're tiny little organisms that each cell individual wants to survive. But they do it in a very fancy conspiracy. It's a collective conspiracy together. It's to protect each other. It's like a secret between those cells. But basically, so any thought, consciousness does not think. That's why when people say conscious thinking, it's a misinterpretation, misconception of, there is no such thing as conscious thinking. There is subconscious thinking, and then there is being conscious of your subconscious thinking. But then we call it conscious thinking. But if you are really in the state of consciousness and you are conscious, you do not think. You don't think. Consciousness doesn't think. Its patterns are thoughts, or the brain that thinks. But the pure consciousness, pure God, the ultimate observer, does not think. It just observes. It's just conscious, non-judgmental.
So what do you do all day?
I'm the most boring person on the planet.
That was the question I was getting ready to ask, that same
How do
question.
you
Because
interact in this world?
There is my brain, and there is the observer. So my brain interacts just like anyone else does. But my brain interacts with more orderly fashion. In time, it becomes more orderly. So the brain, so the subconsciousness becomes, it's like the consciousness. If you have this is the best way to put it metaphorically. The field, right? The football field, right? And your brain is the player on the football field. And then you have the coach, which is your conscience, not consciousness, but conscience, your moral, that religions came about and developed this coach that tells the player, don't do this, that's wrong, go left, don't go right. Or, that judges, it observes, the coach observes. So this is the unconscious brain, this is the subconscious brain.
But didn't we learn our subconscious brain from our environment? I mean, we learned our religions and all that. We learned how to be the coach from conditioning, from going to school and going to
Genetics
church.
conditioning. But that's all also patterns of consciousness in either case. But yeah, the
And the
coach.
reason I asked that question is because when we get to the next level, will that also be taught to individuals, the observer, teaching people to be observant rather than being just a player, just a coach? Because
That's when we're reaching a threshold, reaching a milestone, we're reaching an entire new realm of the method of change. So far from the beginning of time until the emergence of the consciousness, the method of change has been through cause and effect, or what seems to be cause and effect. So in order for this player to change, it's the way it plays, then the coach has to cause it to do that by telling it to do this. And the reason why you're able to change is by learning. So it's called cause and effect. The emergence of the consciousness changes the game of life, the game of reality. That's why it's called the new reality, literally. Literally new reality. It is no longer the reality of cause and effect, circumstance and consequence. It's a game changer. It's an utterly game changer. It is something that humanity has never, or existence has never, unless there's some aliens out there that are much more highly conscious than us. I don't know, but we're talking about what's realistic to us now. It's us humans. It's a new method of change. It's where you change by observing instead of changing by causing something and applying an effect. You change by observing. Usually we change by judging, right? We judge if it's okay or not, if it's good or not, and then we apply change. So cause and effect after judgment. So we judgment. So this coach that religions have empowered, and it was necessary, absolutely necessary, because in the past there was nothing here. There was only a player. So 100,000 years ago, primitive humans there was no conscience. You're hungry, you go kill and eat. You don't find food, you steal your neighbor's food. There's no conscience. There is no coach, wrong or right. It's all about playing survivorship, so it's like animals. So the one's only player on the field, which is the unconscious mind.
We won't talk about what happened when you get horny.
Right. Yeah.
That's not.
We'll leave it to your imagination.
This is on YouTube. It's okay.
Censor.
Yes, censor. Yeah. I'm the only one on the camera. You can come over here and say that. Come here. So religions, or in time, the subconsciousness got developed, and then religions came and enforced and empowered the subconsciousness, which is the coach. And a lot of people are still, I would say the majority of humanity now are still in the state of subconsciousness, which is the coach. They're still in the state of the coach, judging right from wrong and trying to coach their own brain. So this is the state, the current state of humanity. It's the state of ego. This is the state of ego, state of subconsciousness. So now what's happening is up on the, sorry, this is a tilted stadium here. But so up on the benches, you have something called an observer. Right? This is what's emerging now. This is the era that we humanity are entering. Is the nature existence is developing something beyond the player and beyond the coach. And this observer here is on that sits on top of the benches, that's observing the game of life. It's observing the brain, it's observing the coach, and it's not judging either of them. It's just observing them without judgment. It's just aware. That's what we call awareness. That's what awareness is. Awareness is to be aware. Once there is a judgment, that's no longer awareness, that's a thought. And the thought is of this, if it's a subconscious thought. If it's an unconscious thought, you won't be even aware of it. So you don't even have to worry about it. Like, sensing something that's an unconscious thought, and then you label it as a subconscious thought. So this, once this becomes awakened, meaning becomes prominent in the collective mind, in the state of mind, once the observer becomes prominent in the collective mind, prominent means it's not, or predominant. I'll use the word predominant. That means it doesn't come between thoughts for a split of a second, it disappears, and then another thought comes, and then you get entangled in thoughts for another 3 hours before you become aware that it's a thought and so forth. When it becomes predominant, that means you're aware most of the time that those are only thoughts in your head. That you are the observer, you are not those thoughts, and you're aware of the thoughts. When your state of consciousness becomes predominant in your collective state of mind, and strong enough, it starts influencing this coach. You can either put it two ways. You can either say this coach starts dissipating because there is no need for it, or this coach becomes like the consciousness. This coach becomes less judging of the player. Becomes less judging of the player. This coach becomes more accepting and more observing without judgment. And when this coach becomes just like the consciousness, becomes totally observant and non-judgmental acceptance of whatever the player does, then you connect the tunnel, you connect the channel between this, which is God, which is consciousness, and your brain, which is the thinker, right? You connect this channel, and the attributes, order, peace, unconditional love, effortlessness, detachment, all this stuff, the attributes of God, basically, of the universe. The universe is not attached itself, it is itself. To be attached is to be attached to something other than you. You cannot say, I am attached to myself. Attachment is something when there is a word of separatism. But in the word of consciousness, there is no separatism. There is only oneness. So there is no attachment. To be attached is to be in the word of separatism. To be attached to something or somebody or a place. So the detachment, the order, the peace, the love, the infinite possibilities, the beyond cause and effect events will start flowing in through the brain, and then the brain will reflect that onto the world. So you become more loving. You become more accepting. The brain, my brain itself. So first my brain had to be attached to things. My brain had to struggle with things, had to pursue, had to analyze. But in time, the more my mind became conscious that those are just so, that this is just the brain, the wiring of the brain changed. And then the brain itself here is a lot more accepting of events that it would have freaked out about a couple of years ago, for instance.
To answer your question then, Richard, as to what Johnny does every day, all day, I'll explain it.
Hug chairs, flowers, people.
I will explain it by using a Taoist saying from the Tao. It says, before awakening, chop wood and haul water. After awakening, chop wood and haul water. So that's it from the Tao.
Right. Right. So the brain still interacts with the world. It interacts with people, but the brain's character starts becoming more aligned with the character of the consciousness. That's when we say you become God. You become an avatar. Like we had some avatars throughout time. You know, why were they able to love unconditionally? It's because of this connectivity between the brain and the consciousness through the state of mind, which is the lens. So the light and the projection is the reality, the reality that we see, and the light is the consciousness, and our state of mind is the lens. How clear our state of mind is determines our experiences, the reality that we experience. Right?
You talked about detachment being miraculous, and that was the title of this session.
The magic.
Oh, the magic, not okay, not miraculous. The magical.
Yeah, miracle magic means something that is unexplainable and unconventional. Right? That's what magic means. And the reason why I said the magic of detachment is when you experience detachment from your thoughts. When you, the consciousness, meaning you recognize your thoughts as thoughts, that is when you are detached, when you are no longer entangled with your thoughts. You would experience magic, which we call synchronicity and manifestation, unexplainable events. A method of change that goes beyond cause and effect, to put it into comprehensible words. A method of change that goes beyond cause and effect, where things change by the mere observation, non-judgmental observation. That's the magic. And it's objective. It's not for your own entertainment purposes. It is an objective, and the objective is for the collective unity. And talking about that, the events that are happening in the world at this moment, they will be intensified. This is the rise. This is the beginning of the rise of the chaos, and also the fall of the ego, and the fall of the current state of humanity. So, although we look at those images, I've seen. My brain has seen terrible, terrible images, whether it's in Gaza Strip, or in Iraq, or with a Malaysian airline, or whatever it is, and in Ukraine, and all this stuff that's happening in that region of the world. There is a sense of empathy, but at the same time, there is a sense of celebration. Not at the cost of those lives, but yet at the collective emergence of the new order. That's what. So, behold your moment, embrace the truth, and you will not struggle. So, any comments?
So, Johnny, is it, I mean, it's true you can become addicted to positive thoughts, too, right? Which sometimes it seems like the negative stuff that happens to you, the negative thoughts are blessings, because you're more apt to want to detach from that, the positive good things that happen in your life. So if you're always in that state of positive, it's like you said, you're just making your comfort zone bigger.
Right.
And the process of attachment may not,
Right.
your ego may not even
Be aware of it, you have to
because your ego won't want, it's harder to be aware of the happy parts of your life.
Right, that's exactly what I went through.
Yeah.
Is for many years I detached from fear. My brain became fearless, or I thought that it became fearless. Not even fearing death or any other situation. It became detached from material. So my brain sold all my businesses 8 years ago and didn't want to deal with material anymore. Didn't want money anymore. Right? I started detaching from relationships. I detached from all this stuff of the form. And it found this comfort zone. And my brain thought that it was awakened because it's detached, meaning it is like God. But at the same time, it was so reliant, so attached on those positive emotions that came out of the detachment from objects and people. So there was this happiness and positive thoughts. Oh, I'm detached. I can live on that. And then that's what a lot of people, monks and, what do you call them, gurus or whatever it is, they live like that. They give up. They detach from people. They detach from places, from material, and they go live in the substandard conditions up in the Himalayas or whatever it's called. And they survive on the thought that I was able to detach from all of that because I am spiritual being. I am awakened, and they have no idea that they are so attached to that thought and the emotions that they generated from that. And they thrive on it. But then, and that creates the comfort zone of artificial detachment. And then they get hit with something from beyond their comfort zone. That's exactly what happened to me. I talk from experience. I found my big comfort zone. I don't want to go live up in the Himalayas, wherever it is, but I was happy not being attached to things or people. And I went for years without a relationship. I did not need a relationship. I'm detached from that. I'm self-sufficient. All I need is my spirituality. And I was attached to the thought. Because I thought that spirituality was a thought. I thrived on the thought that I'm a spiritual being. But it was only the form of a thought, not a state of being. There's a huge difference. There's a world of difference between conventional reality and new reality. Between a state and a thought. A lot of people read books. And they go to meetings. And they go to church. And they go home full of thought. And they rely on those thoughts. And those thoughts create this comfort zone. But when those thoughts are threatened by something unexpected that defies those thoughts, what do you say? Hell rising over or something like that? All hell breaks. You were in heaven and now all hell breaks. You thought you were in heaven. I thought I was in heaven. I reached this awakening. But it was all thought.
So what got you out of that? What busted that open for you?
So I was presented with a punch in the head, which is an experience that posed fear, not to me, but to my mother in particular. And I plunged into fear. precisely 2 years ago, July of 2012. So I plunged into fear, and all those thoughts of me being detached and spiritual and loving, and I experienced my brain to be extremely loving, extremely selfless, extremely ordinary, at peace with everything. My brain was, to me, was awakened at that time. It was only a thought. But when I got hit with this, when I plunged into deep fear that came from an unexpected place that threatened those thoughts, all those thoughts collapsed, fell apart. I was left with chaos in my head, utter confusion. You know, if everything that I thought I knew is not true, what do I deal with now? Do I go back to conventionality? If the spirituality that I became so comfortable with, that became my comfort zone, deceived me and disappointed me and defied its own self, what do I do? So I plunged into a month and a half of deep fear, deep confusion, struggle. I cried every day and at night, and I didn't know who to turn to, and it was a chaos in my head. That's precisely what happens also at the collective level. That's precisely what is happening, or will happen more at the collective level. At the height of chaos, emerges order. Light is the most orderly form that we know of. Right? Light emerges when subatomic particles go berserk, when there's intense heat, and they start bombarding each other and going in every direction, not knowing where to go. At the height of chaos for those subatomic particles, emerges the most orderly form that we know of. Just put it into a metaphorical example. But it applies to everything. It applies to individuality, it applies to the collectiveness, to all of humanity. And that's what happened. The order just emerged into my mind on its own, and that was awakening. When I realized that all this chaos in my head was only thoughts. And everything that I relied on before was only thought. When I recognized that it's only thought became so insignificant to me, I couldn't take any thought seriously. It doesn't matter what the thought is. When I need to pay my bill and I don't have any money, or my loved one is dying. It doesn't matter how intense the thought is, it is a thought. But then you say, well, what is negligence? The thought is connected to a real situation. So if my loved one is dying, or my loved one, we're taking extreme scenarios here, or my finances are going down the drain and I'm going to be thrown out on the street. Yes, it's a thought, but it's connected to a real situation, a real event. You can't just ignore this thought because it's connected to a real event. So what do you do? Really, what do you do?
Act on it. Like to do something.
So you fall back into conventionality. You go back into cause and
Yes.
effect. That's what I thought I had to do. But that doesn't change much. It changes that, but then you face another thing. Another thing, and then you're still stuck in the box of conventionality. You tweet something, something else comes out.
So you move back into the realm of infinite possibilities.
Well, how do you do that?
You stop trying and you start being.
You insist that it is still a thought. You insist that it is still a thought. And you watch the magic of detachment.
Wow.
Needs courage. Surrender needs courage. But that courage comes on its own too, don't worry. So basically, I love what Jim is thinking. Jersey, I have the courage.
Got liquid courage.
Don't waver. You are the consciousness. You are not the thought. Don't get entangled with the thought. Insist that it is a thought, no matter how drastic the situation is, which is a thought. no matter how threatening it is to your stability or anyone else's stability, or word stability. Insist that you are the consciousness and your only job is to be aware that this is a thought. It is just a projection. By doing so, you will experience the new reality beyond cause and effect. And whatever caused this thought, once the thought changes, whatever it is changes as well, because it is all thought. Yeah.
So when you were, for a month and a half crying and all that stuff, so when the realization occurred, was it like that?
Yes.
Oh.
It's a leap. There are thresholds, and between thresholds there are transformational processes. But there are jumps. So meaning you walk, and there's a ditch. And that ditch is the chaos. So once you feel that you're falling in that ditch, but all it is you're only looking at that ditch with fire in it, so to speak. And your thoughts, because you're seeing that ditch, you think that you're burning, you think that you're in the ditch, but as a matter of fact, you're alive, and even if it was pain, your consciousness is alive, very well there. So the consciousness is looking at the ditch. It's not in the ditch. It's looking at it. It's looking at the fire. But the brain thinks it's already in the fire. But once the consciousness takes itself and the brain and jumps over the ditch on the other side, then the brain looks back and the brain goes, well, I'm on this side. I thought I was in the ditch and I'm going to burn forever and I'm done. But look, I'm on this side now. And that's called awakening. But then the brain realizes that I did not have the ability to jump over this ditch. So what brought me across this ditch? It's a wide ditch. It's an infinite ditch. The pain and the struggle is all the way to the horizons.